Well, let's get to our roundtable with some familiar and some new faces here on MiWeek. Karen Dumas, the former communications head for Detroit Mayor Dave Bing, now the host of Afternoon Drive on WFDF 910 AM radio. Karen, welcome to MiWeek. It's good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
And also Howard Edelson, a political strategist for the Democrats. Howard, you've been on before, so welcome back. It's good to see you.
Well, thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
All right, and now on the left side of the table, did you see how I kind of changed that, switched that up a little bit? On this side, Dennis Darnoi, Republican political strategist out of Oakland County. Dennis, it's good to see you again. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
And also a first-timer here, Kaitlyn Buss. She is the senior editorial writer and columnist with the Detroit News. Welcome to MiWeek, Kaitlyn. It's good to see you. All right, so now we get to talk about what has happened all week long here with the Republicans, and this has really been something to see, and Nolan really touched on it. I'm going to start with you, Dennis. Why don't you go ahead and give me what your thoughts were in terms of what you've seen this week coming out from the Republicans, tone and message.
Well, tone is anger and directed very specifically to Hillary Clinton. We talk about what unifies the party. Defeat of Hillary Clinton does. And yeah, you have people who aren't there right now, but in November they will be there. They'll be there to defeat her. That's the driving, motivating factor. We all want to judge Trump by the traditional political standards, and if we do that, yeah, the convention has been very poor, hasn't been organized, very uneven. But at the end of the day, all that people are going to remember is what's said tonight in his speech. And they will unify after tonight to defeat Hillary Clinton.
Do you think you need to hear some more specifics from Donald Trump about how he's going to achieve certain things to make America great again? Or does he just need to continue giving that message?
No, Nolan hit it on the head. This is going to be an election about who do you dislike less. So he doesn't need to be specific. He doesn't have to talk about what programs he's going to implement. He just has to point out how horrible it's going to be under 4 more years of, an extension of the Obama presidency as embraced by Hillary Clinton. That will be enough to bring Republican voters out in November.
All right, Karen, overall tone, overall thoughts when you've been watching this happen in Cleveland this week?
I'm really not sure if I'm watching a frat party or a commercial for a prescription drug on television. You know, how they feed into your fears. I've heard nothing of substance relative to policy, but it has been consistent with Donald Trump's message from start to finish. And that's a disappointment because it speaks to, I guess, their underestimation of the American voters, that we don't have to tell you anything of substance. All we can do is feed your fears and give you foolishness to, create headlines and sound bites from here on out. Very disappointing. Very disappointing. No substance at all.
All right, Kaitlyn, what do you think in terms of no substance or the platform of fear?
I think the first few nights, Monday and Tuesday, certainly had that fear element. I mean, they were kind of crazy to watch, especially on TV. But last night they did get a little bit more into the substance, and I think the presence of Pence, he was a little weightier. He has more of those conservative credentials that a lot of people in the party are looking for, and he's there on substance. So I think they're starting to get in that direction. We'll see how much substance Donald Trump brings tonight. I think they know that he's more the brand. And he doesn't necessarily need to have the substance, but like you said, voters want to see that from him, and at some point we're going to have to see it, and I hope there's some of that tonight.
Howard?
Well, for sure this is the most unique election I think any of us have seen in our lifetime. If you think about the Republican primary, it started out with 17 candidates, all of them in one way or another peddling fear, doom and gloom. Whether it's immigrants coming over from Mexico, we got to build a wall, go buy your guns because they're going to take them away from you. That's how they motivate the American public. And so what we're seeing is just an extension of fear, doom, and gloom, and we've heard that throughout the entire convention now. And, I think they've made the strategy, to Dennis' point, that, there's 2 ways of getting people to vote. It's either vote for something or vote against something. And they know they have a toxic candidate, a unique candidate, and they're not going to get people to vote for him. It's much easier to take down Hillary Clinton, prosecute a no vote, get people to vote no. So I think that's what we've seen. I think we'll continue to see that, and it's going to be at the end a historic, the lesser of 2 evils election.
It's interesting because when I watch this, and I look and see the Republicans have an opportunity here. They have primetime coverage all week long to throw their message out, and not just to get Republicans on board, which is what they seem to have been trying to do all along, like let's unite, but to try to get everybody else, try to get pull from other different parties or pull from people who may not have voted before. You know, coming out of 2012, Dennis, they were talking a lot about how, gosh, we need to attract women, we need to attract minorities, we need to kind of change things, and looking back at this election that we lost. What has changed now in the last 4 years? They've been able to change the wheel on that, because looking at the crowd in Cleveland, which seems very male and white to me, I'm not quite sure that Republicans have been able to incorporate a lot of those changes that they said coming out of 2012. We got to learn from our mistakes.
Sure. I mean, I think Donald Trump saw an opportunity. As Howard mentioned, it was an incredibly packed primary field. So maybe all the other candidates may have implemented, we did the autopsy after 2012 and said, how do we expand our party? Trump said, no, I don't need to do that. And again, I think if you try to measure Trump's candidacy by traditional political metrics, he's always going to fail. But I think part of his attraction right now is he tells it like it is. He, as his kids said, he's very forthcoming, he's very upfront with what his message is, and it's resonating.
So let me ask you, Karen, then, so when people see this and they watch, do you think then people who aren't Republicans or staunch Democrats, that they're just going to stay home? Is that what we're going to see an election of?
That's the fear, because you've got a lot of people that are supporting Hillary Clinton, and they're not really clear as to why they're supporting Hillary Clinton. So I'm not so sure that anybody on either side is comfortable with the options. But you can't talk about building a party or building or rebuilding America and then continue to have divisive conversation. You saw Congressman King yesterday say, white people have done more to contribute to this country more than any other subgroup ever before. I mean, look at the conversation of even the people who are supporting Trump. You're talking about taking America back at a time now more than ever when we should be talking about moving forward.
Kaitlyn, did you see that from Congressman King? It was a little inflammatory rhetoric there.
I actually did not see that. I must have been putting my baby to sleep at that point or something. But I did, on the speaker diversity issue, I thought last night was a bit more diverse, and they did start hitting on some of the, LGBT issues. They certainly mentioned people more. I mean, even Newt Gingrich mentioned them, and he tried to be inclusive of Muslims. So maybe they're hearing some of this feedback and trying to change course now at the convention. I thought the crowd was, from panning the audience, diverse. I mean, it is a Republican convention, but to your point, Trump has drawn in people from other ends, of the political spectrum, Democrats and some independents, that he has grown the party in kind of untraditional ways that we're not, used to seeing.
Well, Howard, yeah. Go ahead.
So I'd say some of the conversation you're hearing, some of the sound bites, that's just lip service. Let's just look at the party. Look at the convention delegates. When that camera pans through the convention, it is overwhelmingly, I would probably not be far-fetched saying 99.9% white delegates. And this is a party that has been hijacked by the Tea Party several election cycles ago. They can't reform. They have moved so far to the right. They're at civil war with themselves. Let's remember, there was a gentleman by the name of Speaker John Boehner, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, that got deposed by his own party. When has that ever happened in the history of our country by their own party? They are a party that is not unified. They are at civil war with themselves. They get smaller and smaller as they get more conservative and conservative. So when you hear stuff about the LGBT community, this or minority, that, it's lip service.
You think it's lip service? Do you think there's a civil war on?
Well, no, I don't think it's lip service. And to a certain extent about civil war, I do think there are two factions right now. You do have the more traditional, we would have liked to have a better rollout for our candidate, convention that follows traditional norms. And that was... And
maybe not Scott Baio as a speaker.
And, Chachi not showing up and giving But, and that was more, I think, the Jeb Bush wing. And that was proven not to be successful this cycle. So yeah, there is a division in terms of how do we move forward. Some say Trump's the nominee, follow his path. There are others who, like Ted Cruz last night, I mean, clearly that was a pitch to run in 2020. He wants to go in a different direction. So yeah, there is disagreement. Civil war, I mean, that's a nice little phrase from Howard, but I wouldn't put it to that level just yet. I mean, we could talk about the Hillary versus Bernie supporters and call there a bit of civil war.
rules.
Fair enough.
We'll,
I mean,
we'll see next week
we'll
if that
find out.
civil
If that's
war
gonna be-
continues.
Yeah, I mean, so is there disagreement? Absolutely. Is there a unified path in how to move forward? No, there's not, but there's nothing really wrong with that.
You know, I think it's really interesting, though. I mean, when you look also at some of the things that have happened over the convention this week, it feels like everything the Republicans wanted people to focus on, they really haven't. I mean, you had Melania Trump and everything that happened around her speech and the plagiarism charges, and taking days to come out and say yes, no, or maybe so. And then you had Ted Cruz come out last night, and no one then really paid attention to Pence because everyone was talking about what Cruz did just before. Kaitlyn, go ahead and give us what your thoughts are on taking a look at some of the distractions that the Republicans haven't been able to get, focused totally on what they want people to focus on.
Yeah, and I think the media has fed into that perhaps a little bit, focusing on the Melania speech, and then last night focusing on Senator Cruz. Trump apparently knew about Cruz's speech beforehand and kind of did a funny move of coming in at the very end to upstage him, and then no one was paying attention to Cruz at the end there. So I think Trump knew that was going to happen. I think tonight will be really telling if they can bring that lack of distraction together. But I did think last night was an improvement over the first two nights in getting their message out, and I thought Pence did a great job. I thought to conservatives he did a really a strong performance.
Hey, Karen, is the media overblowing stuff? Have we been fair this week, do you think?
I think so, yes, because I think these are things that people want to know, and I think the attempt by the Republican Party to constantly trivialize its missteps is disingenuous, and I think it's unfair. So no, I don't think the media has been unfair. People need to know what's really going on, and I think Cruz last night was that was payback for all the personal attacks that Trump delivered to him, early on in the campaign. So I mean, it's all personal, and nothing is beyond lip service. You don't start to build a brand or strengthen or build a party in your final days of the convention.
And
Howard.
I think.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I
Then I want to pick up with Howard.
No, to her point, I think it's right, and it was payback, and it's proof that Trump is not running a traditional political organization.
There has been nothing traditional about this entire thing.
Absolutely not, because the way it's done, and Karen and Howard can attest to this, you vet your speakers, you vet what they're going to say. You don't allow someone, and even if you knew 2 hours in advance, I'm sorry, in the past, you're going to know days in advance. So yeah, this is part of the Trump train. Just get on and enjoy the ride.
And I think,
or really belt yourself in. Go ahead, Howard.
I'm enjoying it as a Democrat. I'm not sure as Republicans you should be enjoying it, but you're right. He's unique. Donald Trump is running as a celebrity on a reality TV show. He's been doing this throughout the entire campaign. He knows how to move people. He knows a brand. But back to your question about media, I think your coverage, overall, the coverage has been good. I think in a 24-hour news cycle, now that you have social media, there's a tendency to, go to the brightest thing and, maybe over-report. But overall, I think you guys have, the media has really covered.
I call it the squirrel factor. Squirrel jumps to one side. Go ahead, Kaitlyn. You want to say something?
oh, I just think, and you're not necessarily part of this, but the media's been trying to keep putting it in this box, put the Trump campaign and the convention into this box, and every time it's outside the box, that's noticeable, and they kind of talk about it a lot, but I think that's what voters have been pushing for, obviously, at least in the Republican Party, so they're not necessarily disappointed in a chaotic show.
If I could just, one more thing on these miscues. These are self-inflicted step on your message mistakes. I kind of liken it to golf. I don't know how many of you play golf, but when your putt is like 6 inches from the hole and someone says, "Oh, that's a give me," they're missing the give me's. And they are making these self-inflicted wounds, whether it's not vetting the Cruz speech, the Melania speech, whether it's what they did with the party rule on the opening day that caused a whole entire state delegation to walk out. These are self-inflicted wounds that step on the candidate's message. And so
Yeah, well, so let's talk about what coming out of this. We were talking a little bit even before the cameras started rolling about what kind of bounce Donald Trump can expect from this convention. And again, predicting anything and predicting numbers has been so weird, Dennis.
Sure. I mean, traditionally what you see is Republican candidates from '88 through 2012, they get about a 4.5% bounce in the polls. He's, polling at about 41% right now. That would put him up to about 45%. Mitt Romney in 2012 didn't enjoy such success. So I think for us, we're going to measure that metric. What are his poll numbers coming out of the convention? What is his bounce? Is it a traditional bounce, or is it something like 2012, the 2-point bounce that Romney got? And that will tell us a lot as we head into the Democratic Convention.
All right, and we are going to be heading into the Democratic Convention in Philly next week. And so, Karen, let me start with you. I mean, as we look forward now, what do the Democrats have to do here to all of a sudden take the message and take all the spotlight and bring it to where they are now?
Not duplicate what happened at the Republican convention. I mean, be on point and understand your core messages. Make sure there's some consistency. At least present unity if there's none. I mean, you want to keep your dirty laundry hidden and see. But, I think Hillary is going to have to establish a degree of trust. People still find her untrustworthy, and I think people are looking for something from her to confirm that she can be or should be trustworthy and presidential.
Yeah, but don't you think that's going to be difficult to recreate in
almost
4 days?
Impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's the challenge.
Okay, Kaitlyn, what do you think that we're going to be seeing from the Democrats next week?
I think that everyone's been counting up how many times the word Hillary Clinton has come up at the Republican convention. I think she's going to have to match that a little bit. I mean, their party remains, very ununited as well. I mean, Bernie still has some, delegates out there. So they're going to have to unite around an anti-Trump message too. I think that's going to be the most effective thing for them. So while I know they, want to keep a positive message and talk about, what she can do for people, they are going to have some of that negativity to counter what's happened this week, I think.
Okay, go ahead, Dennis. What do you think?
Karen's dead on. It's going to be the exact opposite of what we've seen out of the Republicans. It's going to be organized. You're going to have a wide swath of diversity, talking on issues that Republicans haven't even touched on. And honestly, again, I think that sets up the election perfectly, because there are those who support Trump and who do not support Hillary because she is as scripted and in a box as you can possibly get. She is, the political establishment writ large. And so to juxtapose the two is actually going to play well in the November election.
All right, 15 seconds. Go ahead, Howard.
Working together, accomplishments, and then what the future is like. That's what the convention is going to show. And then in terms of her, she's going to work on likability. It's a lot easier to work on likability than trustworthiness.
And I hope it shows everyone that they've got to be invested in this process. You watch what the Republicans do this week, watch what the Democrats do next week, and remember that your vote counts more than anything. Karen Dumas, Howard Edelson, Dennis Darnoi, Kaitlyn Buss, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.